Creative babble.
I go through this year-long battle. I win this huge multi-million-dollar lawsuit, $3.57 million, permanent restraining orders. She's sentenced to jail. I finally feel like, okay, the word's out there. Everybody is now aware of the predator that I have been dealing with the last year.
Anthony Christopher, LaDonna's former employer, felt vindicated. He won.
6 months go by, rebuilding my company, have my reputation back. I've cleared my name. I get a call from my attorney. Glenn Ritter calls me, says to me, Anthony, what are you doing? Where are you at? I tell him I'm working. I'm at the clinic. What's wrong? You're scaring me. Is everything okay? He says to me, I need you to get in your car. I need you to come here. You need to drive safe. You need to follow the speed limits, obey the traffic signals, because if you get pulled over, you're going to be arrested. There's been a felony warrant issued for your arrest by the Arkansas Attorney General Office for Medicaid fraud.
Let's back up for a second. Anthony Christopher fired LaDonna and almost immediately sues her for allegedly sending spoof messages and trying to discredit his business. While all this is happening, LaDonna says that she was just acting as a whistleblower, telling everyone that Anthony Christopher was operating a fraudulent clinic.
So early October of 2018, LaDonna starts calling anybody and everybody. Department of Labor, HIPAA compliance, Arkansas Attorney General Office, local prosecutors, police, mayor's offices, anybody she can. In the words of LaDonna Humphrey, she's casting out a wide net. She's throwing anything out there to see what she can stick.
And that complaint with the Arkansas Attorney General's office stuck and set in motion felony charges that were delivered right after the civil suit was adjudicated. Because LaDonna contacted the Attorney General's office and filed that complaint, Anthony Christopher was eventually arrested and later charged with 4 felonies, including Medicaid billing. Anthony Christopher pleaded not guilty and vowed to fight the criminal charges, maintaining that he had done nothing wrong.
We come to realize through fighting the charges was that LaDonna really was the sole reason behind the Arkansas Attorney General Office coming after me. Inflating these stories or making up just absolute 100% false allegations about my business, about my character, attacking my sexuality.
In October 2023, his attorney discovered that the emails sent by LaDonna Humphrey to the Attorney General's office had been deleted and the paper printouts hadn't been turned over to the defense.
I think for her, she thought she would win.
On October 13th, just days before Anthony Christopher was set to go to trial, the Attorney General's office announced that it was dropping the case. The office cited that the investigator and the Assistant Attorney General assigned to the case were no longer employed there and that the key witness had become unavailable. In the court filings, the office stated, quote, "At this point, the state cannot go forward because it is not possible to meet the burden of proof on the charges filed."
What all ends up coming out in the discovery process is that the Arkansas Attorney General Office has nothing. They don't have anything of any wrongdoing that myself or my clinic had done. What they had were false, inflated statements from LaDonna Humphrey attempting to not only ruin my character, but to take down my company. And ultimately, she did. She succeeded. LaDonna plays this victim. Every role, every instance, every time she goes to attack or ruin the next life or reputation, what we see in police interrogation videos, in the transcripts from the Arkansas Attorney General's office, what we see in this is that it's always the same character. She plays this foster to adopt mother, 5 kids she's adopted, 7 kids total. She's this humble, meek Christian housewife that just wants to lead a career helping people. But what we see is that all of that facade comes down very quickly when you break the barrier of just the initial interview. The problem is the woman is so believable in her deception that very few people go beyond that facade of what you see and actually diligently look into her. The Arkansas Attorney General's office had no idea that I had just won a landmark lawsuit against her. They had no idea that she was forced to spend 10 days in jail for contempt of court and destruction of evidence. They don't look at any of these things. And ultimately what we see when they dropped all the charges is that they say in there that they had no intention of using LaDonna as a witness because her character was so flawed.
You have to remember, Anthony Christopher thought he was fighting this alone. He had no idea that there were others out there claiming to have had similar experiences. That is, until he got this voicemail.
My name is Jon Allen.
The quality of the message is not very good, but its impact is huge. In fact, this podcast series wouldn't exist without it.
I know LaDonna Humphrey very well, and she has screwed over 5 or 6 different businesses in the last 20 years. I've got a lot of stories for you that would help your case.
All of a sudden, Anthony Christopher wasn't alone. There were others who claimed that they too were harassed by LaDonna Humphrey. I'm Javier Leyva, and this is Pretend. Stories about real people pretending to be someone else.
So I win the lawsuit September 2019. It's only 2 days after I win. My attorney calls me. He said, "Hey, you wanna go check your email and listen to a voicemail I just forwarded you?" And I think I still have that voicemail. And I listened to the voicemail, and the individual says, they call my attorney. They say, "Hi, my name's Jon Allen. My father, Jon Allen, and my family have been victims of LaDonna for years. And we just found out about your lawsuit and think we may have information that can help you."
All of a sudden, the floodgates busted open.
"Hey, have you met this victim? Let me introduce you to this victim." And they all just started coming out of the woodwork.
Not only did Anthony Christopher discover that he wasn't alone, there were others who say they were victimized by LaDonna Humphrey too. And he discovered that this pattern of harassment spans the last 30 years. Let's go back to the year 1993. That's when LaDonna first met Pastor Jon Allen. She was only 19 years old.
My parents were attending his church, and they asked me to come visit church there, and I did. And so it just so happened that he was having a job opening for a church assistant to him.
Jon Allen, the pastor of Lake Hills Baptist Church, offered LaDonna a job to be his assistant.
And I said yes. It was more money than I'd ever made before. It was like, I think, $9 an hour. It's kind of funny now. Jon is very likable when you first meet him, and I was very excited about the job opportunity. I was newly married, and very shortly into that position, I was very welcomed into their family like a daughter. That's how they treated me. And I was very close to the Allens.
Here's Anthony Christopher. She worked for this church when she was 19, and they had a preschool. And what she does is she gets close to the financials of every company and then just starts robbing them blind. And then when they find out, she attacks them profusely, ruins their lives, and then scares them into hiding.
Let me explain. LaDonna Humphrey is accused of being embroiled in a serious financial scheme. Pastor Jon Allen said that LaDonna was in charge of payroll and was deducting income tax from their employees' paychecks, but instead of remitting these taxes to the state, she's accused of embezzling the money. The state discovered the discrepancy and filed a lien against the church. This ultimately caused the church to go bankrupt in 2009. By the way, LaDonna was never charged with this crime.
What she did was she was stealing the tax money from the preschool that was being withheld from the employee checks and pocketing it. One day, an IRS agent shows up, asks to speak with the pastor, asks him why he's not paying taxes. He says, "I think it's just a mistake. Let me call LaDonna. We'll get this squared up in the morning." And he said, "Okay." And the guy stays overnight, and he calls LaDonna and said, "Hey, the IRS is here. I'm sure it's a simple mistake, but we got to meet at 9 a.m. with him to clear up any confusion." She says, "Okay," never shows up the next day. But finally, the agent gets tired of waiting and says, "Hey, we got to get started on this." Goes in, They go into her office, open the file cabinet she had gone in the night before and shredded all the financial documents. Weeks later, she sends an anonymous postcard to the entire congregation calling the pastor a rapist and saying that she had to remain anonymous out of fear for her safety.
Well, those are the accusations. So there's no hard evidence other than the Allens' testimonies. And by the way, the Allen family did not want to take part in this podcast. However, I have a stack of DVDs containing all the case files. I have hours and hours of recorded interviews and court records. But why are we talking about this? What does any of this have to do with the central theme in my investigation into LaDonna Humphrey and her history of alleged harassment?
Central 911, what's that emergency?
My emergency is my husband just called me and said the house is on fire and he was crying. I don't know the situation.
That's Diane Allen, the pastor's wife, calling 911 because their two-story home is fully engulfed in flames. At first, they didn't really consider Jon Allen a suspect. But eventually, a fire marshal says that he found evidence of arson. He believed that Jon Allen used an accelerant to start the fire in order to collect money from his home insurance policy. Here's Jon Allen speaking in a sworn statement.
Well, see, I know I didn't set my house on fire.
He said, it just doesn't make sense.
First of all, we'll never recover from this. No. In fact, we were driving along the other day, just Diane and me, and all of a sudden she said, that's stupid. I said, what? And she said, it's stupid that you would do this out of some kind of financial gain motive, because we'll never recover from this.
There's no way Jon would set fire to our house. It would be of no advantage at all.
Any money that they would get from this insurance policy could never replace everything they've lost. But we're not here to solve an arson investigation. Our interest here is focused solely on LaDonna Humphrey. Right around the time investigators started questioning the Allen story, police got a mysterious tip. This caller told the authorities to look into Jon Allen for arson, claiming that he wanted to collect $1 million policy. The mystery caller also spilled the tea on gossip relating to the Allens' marriage. This took Diane Allen by surprise.
How's your marriage?
It's fine. It's fine.
Okay.
I mean, things are tough. This is a bad thing, but
My
we've
marriage ain't
probably
perfect
been...
either. I want to just tell you, okay? Somebody called us and told you guys you're having marital problems and good chance you can get fixed and get divorced.
I want to know who it is.
You will find out eventually, but I can't tell you right now.
You will eventually find out, but I can't tell you? Who is this mysterious caller? Investigators asked Pastor Jon Allen if he has any enemies. He said no.
Why would they do that to you unless they're really mad at you or somebody else? You have no enemies except for the one lady that torments Rachel from the daycare. So there's no enemies really to you. So why would they come back and do this to you now?
Well, I don't know why someone would call and say that Diane and I were going to get a divorce over this.
I don't know.
You talk about enemies. Have you heard that tape?
Mm-hmm.
Jon Allen wants to know who this mysterious tipster is.
Spoke to the person.
Huh?
I spoke to him.
You did?
Mm-hmm.
And they said they remember my family.
Oh, yeah.
And that they were going to get a divorce. Do you have their name and address? I mean, you know who they are?
I do.
Are they a member of my family?
Mm-hmm.
By the way, a lot of people don't know this, but law enforcement investigators are legally allowed to use deception during interrogations. Yeah, they don't have to tell you the truth. Was this mysterious caller really a family member, or could it have been somebody else?
John, they could be lying. But we had to tell you what we have. And when somebody says something like that, we got to run with it and check it out.
You say they remember they said they remember my family. But I mean, have you verified that?
Yes.
Remember my family?
They're married into your family. Put it that way.
It could be somebody pissed at you. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I don't know the person. I don't know. But if that's the only thing that we got to go with, if that's what I'm basing this on, I'm wrong.
Now here is where things get interesting. The Allens say that they don't have any enemies. The only person they've really had trouble with was that secretary who worked for them almost 13 years prior. Why would she have anything to do with their house fire or this investigation? After the break, LaDonna Humphrey finds herself in the middle of the Allen arson investigation.
If you love chilling mysteries, unsolved cases, and a touch of mom-style humor, Moms and Mysteries is the podcast you've been searching for. Hey guys, I'm Mandy.
And I'm Melissa. Join us every Tuesday for Moms and Mysteries, your gateway to gripping, well-researched true crime stories. Each week, we deep dive into a variety of mind-boggling cases as we shed light on everything from heists to whodunits. We're your go-to podcast for mysteries with a motherly touch. Subscribe now to Moms and Mysteries wherever you get your podcasts.
When I found out that John's house burned down, I looked at my husband, I'm remarried, and I said, oh my gosh, he burned it down. And he said, what? I said, he had to have. So I started telling him the story because he doesn't know John. And he was like, that's crazy. And then we see it in the paper. And my phone starts ringing.
LaDonna Humphrey was excited.
Have you ever heard the song? You're probably going to think I'm terrible. Billy Joel's song, We Didn't Start the Fire. And I sent the lyrics to him. He goes, why are you sending me the lyrics? And I said, well, because I want you to check out this link. And he looked at it and he called me. He goes, oh, he was arrested.
Billy Joel's We Didn't Start the Fire? Right. Much like the mysterious tipster, LaDonna Humphrey had a lot to say about the Allens, and almost none of it had to do with arson.
Yeah, right now.
A good person. I mean, that was 10 years of my life. And I'd always hoped that he would turn out to be a good guy. You know, that he would make it right. And he just never did. He just got worse. He was in charge of everything. He controlled everything. Diane is not mentally strong enough to get away from him. I don't think she ever will. But she's not a fool either. She's very aware of...
Do you think she was involved with that fire?
No.
You don't?
No. You'd have to... I think she's been involved with a lot of things, but I think she's emotionally and mentally abused by that man. I think she knows that he cheats on her, and she knows that he's done horrible things, and she knows that he could... I'm sure he's threatened her, just like he's threatened the rest of us. And she is a very sweet, good-hearted, meek person, and I think she's terrified of him.
At one point, LaDonna casually suggests that Jon Allen is a sexual predator.
Has he hurt anybody, though? Like, sex crimes? Can you tell me that?
No.
Okay.
Not that we know.
Okay.
Then she tells police that she believes Jon Allen, her pastor, broke into her house to sniff her panties.
I've had break-ins at my old house, and we had our storage unit broken into. I know that he probably got into my old house on Kansas Street. We could never prove it. And here's something that happened. About 2 years after this was before I even left, but when you came around the corner to my bedroom, my lingerie drawer had been rifled through, and there was lingerie I never did get back, ever. And looking back, I always thought, he's a weirdo. He's a weirdo.
Then she talked about the pastor's fascination with pornography.
I found porn on his computer at work. He had forgot to erase his cookies, and I was looking for something, and I just happened to find it. Like, I would think he would be embarrassed, because it was like bondage, and there was lesbian stuff. There was...
You didn't even use there, huh?
It was there.
Then they talk about LaDonna's time working for Jon Allen and the accusations that she embezzled money from the church.
What do you know about IRS liens?
I know they have them, but I wasn't there at the time.
Why didn't you take it out of their payroll like you're supposed to have and submit it? Or you did take it out, but you didn't submit it. Why did you do that?
I did everything he told
Who
me
did
to
that
do.
then?
She said she did everything he told her to do. Pastor Jon Allen ultimately took responsibility for the liens filed against the church because he said he had no other choice. He claimed that he had an incompetent employee who did not know how to do her job.
He's saying it's me, if that's what he means. No, I don't do anything with taxes, so that doesn't make sense.
But I mean, he's saying that a secretary, which is not saying who it is, but it's you, snuck in, took all her stuff, and left the keys, said, I quit.
No, I did not sneak in and leave the keys.
But see, I mean, that's
Let me tell you, you can ask any of the elders. They gave me a going away present at church on Sunday. Everybody knew I was leaving. There was no sneaking and leaving the keys. That never happened.
Did anybody ever leave keys to this girl's secretary?
No, I would have been the only secretary.
LaDonna Humphrey also claims that Jon Allen threatened to kill her on her way out.
He wrote a card to me as I was leaving, and he put a package of Kool-Aid in it and told me to drink the Kool-Aid. And that's like a Jim Jones reference, like the poison Kool-Aid. And I kept it because to me that was a threat. I should have called the police. I just wanted to be away from him. He's threatened to kill me. He's threatened to kill a lot of people. So
how did he threaten to kill you?
He just said he would kill me. He didn't give me anything.
She said their relationship wasn't always this volatile.
And I was very close to the Allens. About a year into the position, it became very clear to me that Jon was very controlling, and he controlled every aspect of his family's life, and he was controlling mine. What I did, who I talked to, who I could be nice to at church, who I should not be nice to at church. And after leaving the church, all those years later, I found out about something called spiritual abuse. He's a con artist. I was terrified. He began to yell and curse at me like I have never been treated in my life, and he told me I would not leave. If I left, and I quote, "I will kill you."
Knowing what we know now about Anthony Christopher's case, the smear campaign seems awfully familiar. It's clear who's driving this interview, and it's not the arson investigators.
Oh, that makes me so mad. I'm going to cry.
No, I'm sorry.
No.
Now, I know what you're probably thinking. Did LaDonna start the fire? That's exactly what LaDonna thought investigators called her in about.
Well, when you called today, I thought I drive a red Suburban, and I thought he's telling them I burned his house down. That's exactly what I thought.
Is that why you asked am I in trouble?
Yes.
Okay.
Did you hear that? LaDonna thought that she was being blamed for the house fire. I'm not even going to go there because I have no evidence to support her involvement. Whether Jon Allen started the fire or not, it's not important because what I want you to focus on is the fact that this disgruntled employee has so much to say about her former boss, yet she's contributing nothing to the actual arson investigation. Even after all this, the Allens can't bring themselves to point the finger at LaDonna.
Do you know, or does anyone pop into your mind, do you have any reason to suspect any person that would have a grudge against either of you and would just set your house on fire because they were mad at you or anything?
No, I think the deputy yesterday asked me, and I said, we've been in the ministry for 3 years and we've known a lot of screwed up, crazy people. But lately, I things have been, seems quiet and smooth. I don't know of anybody who feels.
Okay.
They asked Diane Allen over and over again, if your husband didn't do this, then who did?
I mean, the IRS lien, like I said, I don't really know much about it, but it happened because of that person at work. She was shredding all sorts of stuff and stealing things and embezzling money. And
She doesn't say LaDonna's name, but we all know who she's talking about. Even still, Diane Allen just can't get herself to believe that someone could hold a grudge for that long and is capable of burning down their house. At the end of the day, the investigators didn't have much.
All we have is speculations. We have a very good circumstantial case against you.
My one son, he said, Dad, he said, they're not going to prove that you set your house on fire, but he said it's going to be death by 1,000 cuts. That's what he said. And he said they're going to ask so many questions. And eventually it's going to look like you're just going to be overwhelmed.
Death by 1,000 paper cuts. After the arson investigation concluded, Jon Allen was charged with 1 count of felony arson.
LaDonna goes to the police department, tells them all of these lies about Jon Allen, that he's a rapist, he's a bad person, that he burned his home down for insurance money, that he had $1 million policy. They never vetted any of the information, never looked at it. She's so believable. They believed her, charged him with felony arson. She humiliates him all over the internet. And then 1 year later, they're forced to drop all charges at the 11th hour because the only proof they had were her statements and no evidence that he ever did anything wrong.
Just like in Anthony's case, prosecutors just didn't have enough evidence to build a case.
And within a year of being cleared, he died of a massive heart attack. And his family will tell you that it was due to all the stress that she put him under.
LaDonna is going on her podcast. She's writing in her books that she knows who killed Missy Witt. I called him up to see what he thinks of her accusing him of murder. That's next time on Pretend. This episode was written by me, Javier Leyva. It was produced by Allison Byrne and edited by the talented Punith Shenoy with the podcast pundits. Of course, many of you have already joined Patreon and Apple Podcasts, and I thank you so much for your support. I'm going to try to write each and every one of you a thank you note, but just know that my Patreon supporters and my Pretend Plus Apple Podcast subscribers will always get the episodes before anyone else. They're also going to get bonus content that just didn't make it into the episode. And of course, everything's ad-free, and you're helping support this itty-bitty podcast. That's it for this week. We'll be back soon with another episode of Who's Afraid of LaDonna Humphrey. Make sure to follow us on social at PretendPod on your social media platform of choice. Take care.
Creative Pep.